Squigman says, you don't quite understand. I'm divesting. I'm selling my shots. I'm purging my paps, shucking my schlitz, and blitzing my blats. Kaznowski says, they're not good anymore? Squigman says, oh, they're all right, but I've come across something that'll put them all out of business. Kaznowski says, all of them? Paps, shots? Squigman, schlitz and blats, that's right. You see, besides taste, there's a major factor that determins which brand of beer that men buy. It's called beer identification. We consider ourselves Schlitz men or Pabst men. What kind of man are you? Kaznowski says, oh, I'm a whatever's on sale man. Squigman says, well, you're unusual. Kaznowski says, to say the least. Squigman says, do you know what there are a lot of in this town? Germans. You know what there are a lot of in this country? Germans? Germans. And nobody's providing beer identification for Germans. Until now. Rex takes a bottle out from under his coat. We do a close-up on the bottle. It reads, Old Fatherland, the Führer of beers. There are 4 little swastikas on each corner. Kaznowski says, that's quite a mind you have, Your Honor. Squigman says, well, see, we Germans are a proud people. But since the end of the last war, we've had pretty much nothing to be proud about. I've been keeping this under wraps until I knew there wasn't going to be another war. The timing is perfect. I'm going into production on Thursday. Another nurse enters. Nurse says, Mr. Kaznowski, it's a boy. Rex, it's a boy. Congratulations. Squigman and Kaznowski simultaneously to each other. Have a cigar! They give each other cigars. Kaznowski says, can we see them? Nurse says, sure, follow me. They walk down the corridor together. Kaznowski says, can I buy stock in your beer? Squigman says, I thought you drove a Chevrolet. Well, that's because I'm very careful with my money. And I can sell the Chevy. I just want to be able to send little Lenny to Yale. Squigman says, you have a good heart, and you now know about beer identification. Sure, you'll come and work for me. But why settle for Yale? What's wrong with Harvard? That's where I'm sending my Andrew. Cut to the maternity ward window. We see 2 babies side by side. The tag on one reads Andrew Squigman. The tag on the other reads Leonard Kaznowski. Cut to the observation window. We see Mr. Kaznowski and Mr. Squigman beaming as they look at their babies. We see Kaznowski handing a fanned roll of bills to Squigman. Squigman accepting them. They give each other a firm handshake. Cut to newsreel footage of Hitler invading Poland. It is the beginning of World War II. Cut to the exterior of the loading dock at the Old Fatherland Brewery. There are trucks in profile lined up, painted with the Old Fatherland logo. Men are unloading cases of Old Fatherland and bringing them into the warehouse. Squigman is standing on the far side of the trucks, shouting to people we can't see. Squigman says, paint! Keep painting! No, you can't stop for lunch! Keep painting! Cut to interior warehouse. There are many tables set up for many more employees dressed in smocks. Kaznowski to the employees, paste! Keep pasting! The employee says, but it's lunchtime, we need a break. There is no lunch break. If you have food with you, you can eat and paste at the same time. That's the best I can do. We're fighting the clock here. Cut to the exterior of the loading dock. You see the same Old Fatherland trucks. Squigman is still on the other side. Squigman, we don't have all night. Paint! We see the trucks from Squigman's point of view. They are in various stages of being repainted. We see enough to be able to tell that the new colors are red, white, and blue, and we see some letters in place, including the word beer. Cut to interior warehouse. Kaznowski says, all right, now everybody has to use 2 hands. Paste! Close up on one of the bottles. It has the old Fatherland label on it. It is pasted over with a red, white, and blue label that reads, Yankee Doodle Beer. We then see another label applied, then another, then another. Cut to exterior loading dock. A truck has been completely painted over. It is now a Yankee Doodle Beer truck. Squigmon is pleased with what he sees. At that moment, we hear a popping sound, and the right front tire goes flat. On Squigmon's dismayed face, we cut to a title card reading, Number 3, New Beginnings. Cut to exterior, Calvin Coolidge High, night. A graphic reads 1958. Cut to interior gymnasium. It's prom night and it's in progress. The gym is appropriately decorated for it. Tuxedo boys and gowned girls are lined up opposite each other to do the stroll, a line dance big in the late 50s. A boy and his date stroll down the line and then take their places at the end of the line. Frank and Mrs. Feeney are chaperones and observers. Frank DeFazio and Mrs. Feeney. Frank says, Mrs. Feeney, now some of Frank's dialogue throughout will consist of mumbling, accompanied by English subtitles. Mrs. Feeney says, Mr. DeFazio. Frank says, how nice you look. Is that a new hat? You always dress so stylishly. He gestures to her dress and gives it the okay sign. Mrs. Feeney says, oh, thank you. You look quite nice yourself. Is that a new suit? Frank says, nah. This one's been sitting in mothballs for the last 3 years. I can't even remember the last time I wore it. He reaches into a pocket and pulls out a yarmulke. He looks at it. He says, oh yeah, July 1955, my butcher's kid's bar mitzvah. Shirley and Carmine stroll down the line together. Frank says, don't Shirley and Carmine look nice together? Mrs. Feeney says, Frank says, well, at least he dances good. Laverne and Lenny begin their stroll down the line. Laverne has the big L on her dress. Frank says, look at this. She's got only one prom in her life, and she has to go with Lenny Kosnowski. He hasn't even graduated. He has to do his senior year over. Mrs. Feeney says, oh, I guess it could be worse. Squiggy, in his turn, strolls down the line by himself. Yeah, Squiggy. He's still a sophomore. Cut to exterior Calvin Coolidge High School, day. Now cut to interior, the gymnasium. Boys are lined up on one side and girls on the other. They are waiting to get to the tables where they will be receiving their caps and gowns. A dispenser lady is behind the table. A late teenage Laverne and Shirley are next to receive their caps and gowns. Rosie Greenbaum follows behind. Laverne DeFazio. Dispenser lady says, DeFazio, right. Cap large, gown medium. She hands Laverne a cap and drapes the gown over her arm. Laverne moves over for Shirley. Shirley Feeney. Feeney, yes. Cap small, gown small. Shirley takes them and follows Laverne. Rosie Greenbaum is next up. Rosie says to Shirley, pretty puny, ain't you? Rosie Greenbaum. Oh yeah, Greenbaum. Yes, large cap, large gown. Laverne and Shirley observe this. Rosie takes the cap and gown. Laverne to Rosie says, too bad they don't have extra large. You'd be busting out of that thing. Rosie, ready to assault. Hey, DeFazio, bust out of this. She attacks Laverne. They start wrestling. Shirley gets caught up in it. Caps and gowns go flying. Cut to the graduation ceremony. Frank DeFazio is in the audience next to Mrs. Feeney. Names are called out and students come up to get their diplomas. The principal calls out the name Carmine Ragusa. Looking resplendent in his cap and gowns, Carmine steps up to accept his diploma, gesturing with clasped hands that he has triumphed. The principal calls the name Laverne DeFazio. Laverne, also pretty resplendent, takes the diploma and looks towards her father. We cut to him and see that he is in tears, wiping his eyes with the yarmulke. Frank says, "That's my muffin." The principal calls Rosie Greenbaum. Rosie, somewhat embarrassed, goes up there to the platform with her cap sitting high atop her hair. It falls off twice on the way up. She takes her diploma and slinks off. The principal calls Shirley Feeney. Shirley goes to the platform, her large cap folding her ears down and practically covering her eyes. She also slinks off the stage. On Mrs. Feeney's dismayed reaction, we cut to Frank DeFazio's dining area in his apartment. Frank and Laverne are having dinner. Frank says, "Muffin." Laverne hands him a muffin. Frank says, "No, not that muffin, new muffin." "Oh." Frank says, "You really made me proud of you today. I wish your mother was still alive so she could have seen it." Laverne says, "Me too, Pop." Now we're going to intercut to an interior of the Feeney dining room. Mrs. Feeney and Shirley having dinner. Throughout the next scene, it's all going to be intercut. Mrs. Feeney said, "I only wish that your rat-finked father didn't run out on us so he could have seen it." Intercut to Frank. Says, "So, have you given any serious consideration as to what you intend to do with your life?" Intercut to Shirley. "Do with my life?" Mrs. Feeney says, "Of course, you've thought about it." Intercut to Laverne, saying, "Sure, how can I not think about it?" Intercut to Shirley. "Want to get married and have babies." Intercut. Laverne says, "I want to get a good job and maybe I'll get married." Intercut. Mrs. Feeney. "Who's going to marry you?" Shirley says, "Well, Carmine took me to the prom. He'd love to marry me." Intercut. Frank says, "Who's going to marry you? I mean, I think you're gorgeous, but I'm not completely objective." Cut to intercut, Mrs. Feeney said, "Carmine wants to be in show business. Good luck on that. You'll have to take 2 jobs just to support him." Intercut, Frank said, "I mean, they're not exactly breaking down the door begging for you for dates." Intercut, Mrs. Feeney saying, "You know, I'm starting to think that this apartment is a little small for us." Shirley says, "We're getting a bigger one? With 2 bedrooms?" Mrs. Feeney says, "No." Intercut, Frank said, "Don't you feel kind of cramped in here?" Laverne says, "No." Frank says, "That's because you have a bedroom and I sleep on the couch." Laverne says, "Yeah, and you've been great about that, Pop." Frank says, "Well, I don't feel like being so great anymore." Intercut, Mrs. Feeney says, "No, we're not moving. Well, I'm not moving." Shirley says, "Mama, you want me to leave?" Mrs. Feeney says, "I'm only thinking of you, dear. I mean, don't you think it's time a girl your age slept in her own bedroom instead of the living room?" Shirley said, "I've always found the couch very comfortable." Mrs. Feeney said, "Shirley, you don't know what you're missing." Frank, intercut to Frank, holding a newspaper. Says, "You know, newspapers are a wonderful thing. In fact, one little section of it can change your life." Intercut to Shirley, saying, "The classified ads?" Mrs. Feeney says, "They're quite helpful." Intercut to Frank. He says, "Sure, for only a nickel you can find a job and an apartment. And bada bing, bada boom, you're a grown-up."